Hey guys, and welcome back to the Pennies to Pounds podcast with your host Kia. And this is the podcast where we aim to dispel your myths, simplify difficult financial jargon, and rectify your own personal problems. Happy Monday, and I'm happy to have everyone back today. We've got an amazing episode for you today with a fantastic guest. But before I get into it and get too excited, guest, who are you?
Well, oh gosh, I find this one really interesting because I talk a lot about titles. So I'm actually just going to say I'm Aaron Knightley. I'm busy. I do a lot of things in the entrepreneurial space, and I love my finance.
Yep.
And that's about it. But maybe we'll reveal a little bit more in a minute. But that's it. Aaron Knightley, I always go with.
Aaron Knightley. I feel like just an air of ambiguity is good.
Yeah.
So let's touch on the personal finance side then.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, what got you interested in personal finance? Because I feel like that's a big area for me. And whenever I ask people this, who are in that space, there's always something that happened as they grew up, whether it was just in school, whether it was a learning, whether it was something that they went through growing up. But what got you interested in it?
We didn't have any money when I was growing up. So that was really it. It was a case of my mum and dad have always worked incredibly hard. You know, they've only ever paid for things that they could afford. And that really was it, is that, you know, as a child, when you're growing up, you see your parents sort of struggling and, you know, times can be pretty tough. I suppose it embedded into me that I didn't want that when I got older. So really it came from probably a pain point of thinking, I need to be better with money, but in order to have money, I need to make more money. And it kind of just evolved from there, really. And I never really wanted to work a job either. I kind of knew that at a young age. So when you combine...
know? Sorry, that's an interesting part. How did you know? Because I feel like when you're in school, you're taught to, you know, you're in primary school, get the grades, go to secondary school, get the grades to go to college or sixth form, and then you're going to go to university and get a job. How did you know in yourself that that wasn't the path that you wanted?
I think because I've always been loud, outspoken, confident, I've always made my own decisions. I've never fallen into peer pressure. My head's sort of never been turned by other people, you know, doing their thing. I've always kind of been my own person. I've always been happy to be a lone wolf. Like when I was working a 9 to 5 and getting my money in gear, I was very happy to live life like a bit of a hermit. I was just okay with it. I'm very comfortable in my own skin. And I think those were just early traits of, I'm good to focus on me, not get distracted. Again, blending that into looking after your money and trying to build a business, it works really well because you're not looking at external or hearing external noise. I just knew that I like control. Okay. And I wasn't happy giving it away, I think. And same with my money.
That's good. So we come back to personal finance, like you touched on. What would be one of the key lessons that you think is just so important for everyone to know?
I think at the moment, and it always has been for me, but more so now, my biggest flex is having money in the bank and time freedom. Like, you know, just being able to do things like this. I'm not tied to a certain location or a certain place. So I was just always aware that for my money to go further, I really need to nurture it. And I was never bothered, going back to my traits, I was never bothered about spending money to look rich. And if someone said to me, well, where did you learn that? Or how did you develop that habit? I would just say my parents. They didn't have money to spend. And I think I've just picked up on, well, if you haven't got it, don't spend it. And I've always stacked it. I've always been fairly good at making money. Even from a young age, I was always tinkering, doing things. So I look after money, I value it, and I respect it. And it's served me well, really.
I think that's a good relationship to have with money. I think everyone's got different perceptions, and lots of it comes from your upbringing. Like you mentioned, your parents were big influence for you. Mine were with me. And it's just so important to acknowledge the relationship that you have with money. So I think we're fortunate that we have good relationships with money because of our parents.
Yeah.
But there's people who perhaps fear it or maybe don't value it as much, so they spend it. But I think once you identify it, then you can actually work to look after money in a good way.
I would say one of my biggest lessons as well when it comes to money and mindset, both of them being tied in, is that quite early on, when our son came into our lives, I was just turning 20. So I was super young, and that was like a defining moment for me. Although I was already good with money and I was trying to make more money at the time, I got even better and it gave me more direction. But the whole money and mindset really ties in because I had binned off a lot of people that I was hanging around with. I used to hang around with a bit dodgy people who weren't good with money, and people who still wear and talk and do the same things as when they did when they were 14. I distanced myself and cut them off, and my social circle changed almost immediately after having my son. So I started getting around people who were in business, who were very entrepreneurial, and that just played a huge factor to my, oh my God, like if I take this seriously, I can have a piece of the pie, and it was a game changer.
That's amazing. That is really amazing. I think a lot of people can make that change. It doesn't need to be as early as you. You were fortunate in that, but I think everyone can make that change, which is obviously why we create the content that we do, and we have the channels that we do to push that message out to people. When it comes to the mistakes then that some people make, that you see, what would be one of the mistakes that you see people make often with their money that people, if they just changed it or acknowledged it, that they could be way better with their money?
Well, what I'm about to say in my content can flare a lot of people up. I'm a realist, so what I'm about to say will trigger some people, but it will only trigger the people who have an insecurity. The cost of living crisis is not real.
Okay.
It does not exist.
Okay.
It does not exist. No one can counter me. I have an answer for everything. The cost of living crisis only affects those who have poor money management habits. If you look over a 100-year financial chart, what has the chart done? It's always gone up. It's had dips, but it's had corrections, but it will always end up going through an inflation phase. If you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Chart, of all the markets, again, it's always gone up. Everything has always gone up. So it's the people that are stagnant and watch and complain and victimize themselves and read the news, blame Jeff Bezos, blame Elon Musk, all these new technologies coming in and companies and corporations, yet despite they employ 30, 40,000 people who pay tax and stuff like that, is that they watch and they complain rather than creating a bubble and going, look, over the last 100 years, it's always going up. It's not going to stop. Just because petrol's gone up by 40p, I need to evolve because times are changing. So I'm going to learn new skill sets. I'm going to cash flow. I'm going to money manage. I'm not going out watching England play every weekend, spending money on fags, booze, betting, drugs, travel. Get better with money and evolve because no one's coming to save you. And I realised that very early on. No one is coming to save you. No one. So actively participate in evolving your life.
It's true that there is no superhero to come and save us. That is very true. But I would ask you then, do you acknowledge that there are people who obviously are at the far end of the spectrum who, just really don't have money at all, right? So those people who there is no kind of like budgeting their way out of it. They are just on that lower end as well.
I would say so, but I would say where there's a will, there's a way.
Okay, that's
I truly believe. I've been at the bottom end, not like bottom, like, a single parent, on drugs, broken, like decrepit and like literally nothing. But I've been on the council estate. I've been brought up. I've been around the wrong people. Like I have got the t-shirt, and I never play my own violin, but I've been there and I got myself out. Only income, young family, no education, no college, no GCSEs, no hand-me-down, all self-made, covered in tattoos. Now work with the richest people in the UK. I've built one of the fastest growing events companies in the UK. No one's done it for me. So I have very strong opinions when people go, oh, well, it's not that easy. No, it's not. No. You're preaching to the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
I have very strong opinions. And I've never flexed on materialistic things. The reason I have money in the bank, and I have done well financially at 31, is that I have not spent money on Gucci, Louis Vuitton slides. I've never financed a car I couldn't afford. I've gone through years and sacrificed my 20s. And at 31, I'm now reaping the rewards. And that's it.
Yeah, well, I would agree with you that there is this, especially in the younger generation, I talk about it all the time, that there is this keeping up the Joneses. There's people who live above their means, who will indulge in luxury items that they perhaps can't afford. And I've seen it firsthand with friends. And I'm like, I know you can't afford that. It's a lovely car, but you were really overstretching yourself financially to get this. And that's when if you start to unpick it, you see that people are working extreme hours to try and pay for their monthly finance, or they've bought this top that looks great, but they need to try and return it. All these things that people are trying to do that to live above their means, and it doesn't benefit them in the long run with their finances. So it is just looking at yourself and reflecting. I think that's the main thing that we take away from it, is reflecting on how you're currently spending, what your lifestyle looks like, and the cutbacks that you can make. So I think there's a lot of cutbacks that people can make if they're being honest with themselves.
Yeah.
And just looking at how they spend.
And it goes deeper. Open up your WhatsApp and have a look at the last 10 people that you've spoken to.
Because your network is important.
How many of those are making money? That's the thing. I always say to people, forget about the business, forget about the money making. Open up your WhatsApp and your call log. Who are the last 10 people you spoke to? Well, Tony down the pub, Laura, you know, whatever. Okay, what are they doing? Well, you know, they're moaning about life, and well, you know, he's always got cancer, and someone else is always moaning about this, and they've got 400 kids. Okay, where's the productivity? Like, where's the positivity? Where's the ambition in any of those 10 conversations you're having? Oh, well, I suppose there's not. Right, change your social circle. Spend a week with millionaires. How about, of course, there's always people that go, well, where'd you find millionaires? It's like, oh my God, do we have to tell you everything? So I think when it comes to money, priorities, anytime I ever make money, automated, I did a video about it. I have 33 bank accounts, and it's like an entire ecosystem. I have 15 streams of income. I don't touch any of it. And it all goes into this like beautiful, you know, orchestrated ecosystem of finances. And everything goes into stocks and shares, private pension, peer-to-peer, private lending that I do now, you know, gold, and all these kind of avenues, and venture capital that I have, and stuff like this all happens. And then at the bottom, if I've got any left, that will be fund money. And if we can afford to go and do something, we will. But if we can't, we won't, because people aren't planning for their pension.
A pension's a massive one. We always talk about it in this podcast.
Yeah.
Pensions are so important. But you tell us, why do you think pensions are important then?
Pensions are important because, number one, if anyone has children, you know, life goes pretty quick.
Yeah.
So I now have an 11-year-old son, and I'm like, where's that gone? Like, where's 11 years gone? I'm 11 years older. And if we have a look at the average person that is now retiring, sort of within our, you know, if you're sub 30 and you start planning for, let's say, 60, 65 years old, you know, to live a reasonable life as a single person, you're going to need about £800,000.
That's a lot of money.
And that's if you live like the next 15 years. And then you've got to plan that. And the thing is, people don't realise or don't want to put themselves 30 years ahead of time, because that can be quite scary, quite daunting, thinking, well, 30 years is a long time. It's not really. And I love, there's a meme and a saying, you would give anything to go back to the age that you are now for the ability that you have. And I think we take that for granted. And so you need to work smarter with your money. Your money needs to work smarter itself, and you need to generate as much cash flow so that the life that you're living now, you know, whatever that might be, it doesn't drop off. Like, I find it fascinating how people buy a house and then they think, well, I could downsize. Yeah, but you bought the house because you love the house. Why are you planning to downsize? You're already planning on an easier way out. So I think people, it's a slight insecurity. And not, again, we're in a world of not wanting to face facts. Because sometimes it's a little bit like vinegar on a cut. No, that hurts. I don't really want to think about it. I'm happy to think of myself as a 60-year-old man and the life that I want to live then. Fit, healthy, travelling everywhere.
Yeah.
So I plan for it.
100%. I love talking about pensions, and people always look at me like I've got two heads because I'm 26. And it's probably one of the topics I bang on about the most because it is so important.
It sounds boring.
It sounds boring, but it is so important because I said when I hit 60-something, I should be sipping pina coladas on a beach, having a good time, not worrying about money. So that's why you think about it from now when I can make those provisions.
But even private medical care, this amazes me. The NHS, you know, it's great, we've got it, but it's piss poor. You know, quite frankly, it is. It's shocking, right? This is kind of where I really drill into people. Okay, so you're spending money on, you're financing a car, you've remortgaged the house, you want a marble kitchen so that your friends can come over and you can say, oh, look at my marble kitchen, although they don't give a shit. But yet you haven't got private medical care. So when one of your family members gets diagnosed with a lump and they get told to come back 2 weeks later and then the operation is in 8-9 weeks, you're happy to wait 8-9 weeks for your family member for a lump to develop. Whereas if you have private medical care, and the average private medical care is between £4,000 to £7,000 a year, I did an entire average breakdown of the average person where their money goes. It adds up to about £9,500 a year on going out, restaurant, clothing, financing car, materialistic things, nipping into the co-op, buying lunch. All of that average spend added up to about £9,500 a year for an average person working, you know, 40 hours a week. But people won't spend £4,000 to £7,000 on an AXA or a Viva private pension, so that if a lump develops, they can get in the day after in the Montefiore or the Priory, wherever it might be, and get it dealt with. Because the health it's like, I find it fascinating that one of the most asked questions on Google is how to make money. And
It is.
And I can bet your last bottom dollar, most of those people are unhealthy in their body. So why would you want to invest and learn to make more money when you won't enjoy the actual return on investment when it comes to fruition. When you're high cholesterol, high blood pressure, I find it fascinating.
Aaron, you are probably the realest talker we've had on this podcast. Everything that you said does hit home, but you know, sometimes people aren't used to hearing it.
Yeah, they don't.
In that way. I think when you consume content online, it's quite nicey and passive, but a lot of the things that you said, people do need to hear. Really
it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth, and people don't like it. Any subject. And the thing is, I talk like this because I've walked all of this, and when people complain, and I look at my journey and I think, well, I haven't complained. Any rejection, any failures that I've had, or any bad decisions, it was my choice. It was my responsibility. So I think, you know, having a good mindset, being real, and accountability and ownership is probably the biggest thing, because when you decide that, right, no more excuses, you can get very real. And then when you get real, you can start to plan. I feel if you keep lying and you keep immersing yourself in this false reality of dopamine hits and pretending to look rich. I mean, my God, I know a lot of people on social media who pretend to look rich. They ain't got a pot to piss in. You're lying to yourself. It's no skin off my nose. But I say it as it is, and I'm very Marmite. People will agree with me, or they
won't. And
yeah,
it's up for people to decide. But like I said, we want to hear what you have to say, and I want to come to business now, because this is how you built yourself and got yourself to where you are today. So tell us a bit more about what you do and what you had to do to get to where you are.
So, you know, jumping right back, I always knew that I wanted to go into business. I was always buying and selling things from a very young age. I was always very entrepreneurial. Again, it came from a place of pain, thinking, well, money solves problems. And one thing maybe we can touch on is money is the root of all happiness. It truly is. And the saying of, would you rather cry on a push bike in the rain, or would you rather cry in a Bentley? I promise you now, I'd rather cry in a Bentley. Yeah. And wealthy people, for the record, are not lonely and unhappy. I know many of them. I work with many of them. They are laughing. Now, I knew that building a business, one, because I built a very good network very early on. So I knew that business was the direction for me. But I knew that it was the ability to give me resources and options and not have to put up with crap. I have to be honest with you, it never went down well in the 9 to 5 when I was told what to do. I was that guy in a meeting where I was building a business in my 9 to 5, but when I was told that I had to do things, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Really?
Oh gosh, yeah. Because I had FU money. I won't swear too much, but I had FU money in the bank. I could get up and leave pretty early on in my job because I'd built a finance company which done very well as a middleman earning high commissions. And I was looking after a lot of wealthy people's money, right? That was my first official business, which I still run today. And that started to earn me a lot of money. And when I earned my first commission over, well, nearly 10 years ago now, nearly 10 years ago, it was like 38,400 something in one hit, right? I'd taken several weeks to do that. And then I had this light bulb moment. I was like, oh, I've just earned more than my year's salary in a period of like 14 days from starting the deal to closing the deal. If I replicate this and I do this very well, and I offer the highest level of professionalism, and I build my network, which today is worth about $2.8 billion on my phone, I could make a lot of money. And I just doubled down. And I knew that business was the way to give me freedom. Because I wanted to get out of 9 to 5 very quick. And especially having a young son, I just wanted comfort and I wanted to enjoy that. And I knew that business was the way forward. And now I'm still building businesses as we speak, and I have a lot of business plans. But it served me very well.
It has. I mean, to do that from very young is very commendable. I think, like I said, at that age, you're thinking, university, do I get a job? Do I do an apprenticeship? Because it is such a young age to decide what you want to do. So to have decided that from that point is very commendable to you. And obviously you're still growing that to this day. So it really is a testament to you.
Do you know what? It wasn't even a case of what do I do? It's like, I was no good at school. Academically, I'm pants. I can't do maths to save my life. You ask me a maths question right now. I don't know. There's no point.
Maths is hard. I'll be honest, maths is hard.
I got PE in a GCSE. That was it. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I needed to make more money. I had a flair. I had this confidence. I could always talk. I had the sort of the gift of the gab, and I had this sales ability. So I was like, well, I am just set up for business. But when you don't know what to do, and if we go back, and even I'm a little bit older, but like I didn't have all the resources we do now.
No.
I had to network. I was coming into London all the time to build my network. So it was a slower journey for me, really. But when I started making really good money, I started, again, nest egging everything. And then obviously I was able to leave my job. I got up one day, packed my laptop, told them to stuff it, and I was off. And from there, I've just enjoyed now business because it's so collaborative. Like it's limitless, and I love it. And financially, you can really benefit, right?
You can really benefit if you build up a good business, successful business.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about investing then. That's a big thing for you, investing. There are people who are going to listen to this episode saying, you know what, Aaron, you've done so well for yourself, but I want to kind of get that ball rolling for me. Maybe it's not starting a business just now. Maybe it's just investing some of the spare cash that I have. What would be some of your actionable steps that you'd say to someone that they can take to go from not investing at all today to maybe if it's in a week or two in a month's time, beginning investing?
So for me, if I'm answering this honestly, when someone says to me, what should I invest in? And I get this question a lot, especially when I live stream every day, is that my first thing is, where are you in life? Because there's so many variables. One, I'm not a financial advisor, but what I would say to people is, are you in debt? First question. Well, yeah, I've got a little bit of debt. Right, there you go. That's where your money's going. If you're not in debt, how big is your emergency fund? Well, I've got a couple of months. No. 12 months minimum. People say 3, 6, 12 months. And then that reduces their pot down. They're like, oh, okay, actually, so I had like 10 grand. Okay, so technically I've got like 2 grand left. Okay, so your 2 grand now goes into your maintenance pot. So in terms of investing, this is the way that I would do it. Clear down debt. It goes emergency, maintenance, floating, cash reserves, private pension, stocks and shares, marketing and venture capital. After that, if you have money to invest, perhaps start looking at bonds, commodities, peer-to-peer, private lending. But until you've done those, I actually would say to people, investing doesn't get you cash rich. So depending on their circumstances, it really varies. But if they're doing all of that and they're asking me still what to invest in, I don't think I'd be asked that question because they're probably pretty savvy already. If they're doing all the basics, they don't need me to tell them now what to invest in. So for me, it's doing the fundamentals that gives them financial empowerment. Because I just want to say this. Do you know how many people are suffering with depression and anxiety because of the workplace and remaining in a place because they haven't got their money right? Because they can't leave. Do you know how dangerous it is to be dependent and need a job? That scares the living daylights out of me to say...
Even on a person as well, same thing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people, I do a lot of content about people are seeking quick wins, seeking quick money because they depend on their job. They're suffering mentally. I mean, it's crazy, like the World Health Organization, like stats about how many people suffer with mental health due to a lack of money and remaining in a workplace. So I would say all of those things, that's what I'd be investing in. And then I'd just go hard on private pension, stocks and shares ISA.
Yeah, I second that as well.
That's it.
Pension, stocks and shares.
Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes we do overcomplicate it. There is so much online that it can be hard to kind of dim out the noise and know what to actually follow.
Yeah.
But those are some good steps you've given us there. On the other side of investing, there's investing in things, stocks and shares, pensions, like you mentioned, but there's investing in yourself.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who's saying, look, I want to invest in myself, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah. For me, it's number one, self-belief. You know, it's really hard to tell someone who hasn't educated themselves, you could be a millionaire. People write it off. Again, it's another thing I find fascinating, that people write themselves off very quickly. That comes from 2 things, their upbringing and what they've seen, but their social circle. Bin off the social circle, be alone for a while, develop a new social circle of ambitious, successful people. And then you go, it is possible. I'm around people who are actually doing it. Maybe it is possible for me. So self-belief, investing in yourself, get yourself right, invest in your health. You know, it's a funny one, but I believe wealth equals health and then health equals more wealth, because health, you know, I just bought a sandwich for a homeless guy on the way here. He doesn't look healthy. He has no money. So when people say, well, health first, it's always health first. Well, it's not, is it? You need money to be healthy. So I would say, yes, self-belief, invest in your health. Because when you have a healthy body and you're physically strong, you are mentally resilient. And then when you're mentally resilient, you can deal with the ups and downs and the turmoil of trying to build something better than what you have now, but get around the right people. You don't have to spend loads of money. Audible and networking. Those are the two things that I would recommend to anyone watching. Buy Audible and buy a couple of tickets to networking events every single month.
Okay.
Non-negotiable, and you meet new people with no agenda and just absorb.
Okay, let's break down Audible then. Are you talking about so people can listen to books?
Yeah.
Right.
Game changer for me. I was never any good at school, but I was listening to Audible. I mean, I've done something like 190 books on Audible, and I listened to them on the way to work, during my break, while I was at work, on my way home, on the weekend, when I was training on the treadmill. I just consumed. And it does, when you say to someone who hasn't consumed, they might think, oh, it's a bit fluffy. No, it really works. But here's the key. Application.
Application is always the biggest thing. Yeah.
Application.
Yeah.
Don't be a librarian. I was talking about this yesterday in the gym with someone. We all know that person who goes, oh, yeah, did you know so-and-so? And you're going, right, okay. Yeah, but did you do it? Oh, no. Right, well, you're a librarian then. You're just hoarding information. You never applied it. I've always taken segments, apply, rinse, repeat. Take another segment. And a lot of the books, the reason I've listened to so many is multiple times listening to the same books. And then you just take little pieces. I think to avoid overwhelm, you don't overload. So, you just take things that are relevant. I don't listen to a lot of billionaires as well.
Okay.
People listen to billionaires too much. It's too far away. I believe you listen to people who are 5 steps ahead if you want to grow fast. So I listen to people who offer me good advice, but also people who are quite close and very similar to my journey, because then I can speed up the process for myself.
100%. I agree with you. And I agree with you on the networking events, because ever since I started my business almost 5 years ago, I realized that sometimes the people that you grew up with, they're great, and you should still keep them in your circle in terms of like socializing. But if you're talking about business, there is just that disconnect. Sometimes when I was in the beginning stages, I would be having conversations about, should I do this? I'm debating on that. And they didn't really have much input. And it's not their fault. They just aren't in that world. Yeah. So you need to find that. And I realized when I was meeting people who are doing way better than me, it almost shifts your perception of what is attainable. Yeah. Because if you're in a certain space, like I grew up in inner city London, you think, oh, okay, I can only reach here. Then you meet someone who's here, and you're like, oh, wow, okay, so it is possible. I should just double down and change some of the things that I'm doing, and it does kind of expand your mind as to what is possible. Yeah. The thing is, when you meet great people, you're inspired, because it's a really tough journey. Like entrepreneurship, finance, none of it's quick. I think the one thing that social media has done a great job of bodging up is telling everyone that this is a fast process. And it's really not. And which is why I would say also one of your other biggest investments, which is non-financial, is your time. I work with a lot of people quite closely, and there's 4 evaluations: self-evaluation, time evaluation, financial, and social evaluation. But the time evaluation is super, super important, because if you're not backed by money and you don't have rich parents to go, we're going to start you on a business, we're going to bring up all of our contacts, and you'll have a business tomorrow and it'll do very well. Well, most people don't have that, and I didn't have that. I'm sure you didn't have that. And so we've had to put the work in, right? So time is of the essence. I am so hot on time. Is that I want to maximize. I mean, look, like, getting the content here, downstairs, just getting bits done. I don't want to waste time, because I know it's not coming back. Money comes and goes and it flows, but I know I'm not going to get my time back. So I actually don't meet people for coffees. I don't have nit and natta. Like I've got my family, I've got my group, I've got my people. That's it. I'm good. Other than that, I just want to make progression, because I know that it goes really quick, and I just want to maximize it. And there's nothing wrong in having social circles and categories and stuff like that. But I'm just so picky on time now. And if someone's values aren't aligned with me, I have nothing of interest. Which is why I was saying I'm so picky on podcasts now. Yes, you did, yeah. I love this subject and I can talk about it all day long. I'm just really now picky on my time. Yeah. You have to be. You have to be. I think, like you said, time is so important. And time, like you said, you don't know where 11 years has gone. It's flown by. Yeah. And when you put it into perspective, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like things have just gone by. I was like, I graduated university like about 3-4 years ago now. And I'm like, that felt like it was yesterday. Yeah. I can't believe it. Just things fly by. So it is so important to really grab time with both hands and prioritize what needs your time. I think a big thing that people do, and I'm not gonna act like I'm immune to it, I do it sometimes, is that you put off the hard things, the things that you know you need to do, especially the things that you know you need to do to progress.
Yeah.
Because it may not be quick and easy and fun, you may just say, oh, I'll just do it later. Yeah. My thing is not the fun part. I don't need things to be fun. It's just sometimes it's like, oh, this is quite laborious. I'll do it in a bit.
Yeah.
But all you're doing is just wasting time and delaying that. And it is kind of organizing yourself and saying, right, you know, there's different ways that people do it, but it might be just waking up and saying, right, let me get things done straight away. I'm not going to think about it, I'm just going to get it done. And put it into blocks and just making use of your time.
Planning is everything. Like even with finances, you take the emotion out of finances. You put everything on a standing order. You know, if you owe someone money, which you should never owe someone money, but if you do, that paying of that money back shouldn't be an emotional thought on a Friday when you get paid. Oh, I've got to send him 50 quid, but I've just been offered to go out. Oh, maybe I'll pay him back next. No. That money, when that comes in, it already goes to him. You take emotion out of everything. And even with social media, just for a moment, is that to manage your time correctly, you know, it's shocking, obviously, the amount of hours that people spend scrolling, consuming mind-numbing content, opposed to the creation side of it and the procrastination. And then they're like, I'm deflated. I've compared my life. I've now fallen into a slump. 2 hours have gone by. I've been watching cats jump off roofs for the last hour and a half. I've gained nothing. And now I feel quite flat. And like, actually, the things that I saw of people living their life, I'm sitting here in a 1-bedroom flat or wherever people are living and they're like, my life's bum. Like, what am I doing with my life? Well, you caused yourself to feel like that. It's the investment of time. Like I always say to people, anytime anyone works with me, I want to know what you do Monday to Monday. And I'm not on about, I want to know the few things. I want to know what you do when you wake up. As in, are you having a coffee or are you scrolling? Are you saying hello to your partner? What do you do? My hours, my entire day is done by 15-minute segments, apart from things like this and training. Other than that, everything I do is 15 minutes. Nothing takes me longer than 15 minutes. We're going to move on. But nothing takes me longer than 15 minutes, quite literally. And so when people say to me, well, I've got a meeting, if I'm working with someone, I'll say, okay, cool. But like, what's the meeting about? Oh, well, it's a business meeting. Oh, here we go. Okay, do you just want it to feel and sound like a business meeting? Or are you actually having a business meeting? I have a lot of business meetings. None of them go over 15 minutes. Da. Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Great. We all know what we're doing. Great. I'll see you later. Bye-bye. And then I'm off. And then we just get on with it. So time, just like 360 of your life, time. So important. Biggest investment for me personally anyway.
100%. I completely agree with you. Before we wrap up then, because you've shared some insightful gems, what would be your top 3 takeaways that you'd like all of our listeners to really action in their lives, whether it's to do with personal finance, business, investments, anything like that?
I think just 3 key traits. Okay. Discipline in your personal life and your financial life, sacrificing in your personal life and your financial life, and patience. Those 3 things. We've almost lost or have the inability to apply any of them. I was disciplined. I've been disciplined my whole life. I sacrificed a lot of things in my 20s, which actually I'm saying they're sacrifices, but they're sacrifices to the standard of a normal person. Really, Aaron, you not going out every weekend, you're actually just going against normal society. You didn't really sacrifice. You just did what was the right decision. Aaron, by not financing a car to pretend like you look rich so that you can drive down the beach and everyone goes, oh my God, he's got that. You sacrificed that, now you have money in the bank. You were so disciplined on yourself, you're fit, you're healthy, and your money's doing really good, and people are around you are happy and you're not stressed and I'm not worried. And then patience. In the beginning, was I patient? No, I wanted it really quick. But now I'm like, it's going to come.
It will come.
Consistency.
Yes.
It's going to come.
Yes.
As long as I keep moving forward, it's going to come. Consistency. So I'd probably throw on a 4th there. Discipline, sacrifice, patience, and consistency.
I love that.
In all areas of your life.
Yeah.
And ignore social media. Put yourself in a bubble.
I love Aaron. Thank you so much. This has been a really good episode. Like I said, the realest talk episode that we've had. But I think a lot of the things that you said, people needed to hear. But for anyone listening and watching, where can they find you to see more of your content?
Pleasure. Well, just Aaron Knightley is my handle. And that's it. And you'll find me.
Thank you so much. And to everyone listening and watching at home, thank you so much. We'll be back again next week with another episode. Bye, guys.